Hey guys, what is up? Unrested here, and tomorrow is a public holiday, so I have time to record a rambling video. I'm pretty happy about that. So I'm just gonna chill out here and just talk about some stuff that I've actually. This time I wrote down just one word, like for each thing that I'm going to talk about. And the reason for that was last time I really enjoyed making that rambling video and I actually got awesome feedback. Everyone was super nice about it. But I did find there were certain times where I was kind of just like searching. My mind is really ADD. If you don't know, I have ADD. So sometimes if I don't have a list in front of me, I just kind of go off on crazy tangents, or I'm just like grabbing at whatever thought suddenly pops into my mind. So I thought to keep myself somewhat on a plan of what to talk about, even though rambling is really talking about anything and everything all at the same time with no planning. I thought I'd put a little bit of plan, because afterwards I did feel like I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that more, but I didn't finally remember it until like halfway through. So that's where this will change. Um, so I'm gonna start first with news in Japan. So I've kind of just labeled it out like so that I know what I want to go through and talk about little by little, and that gives me a little bit more structure. So news in Japan. Um, Recently, as I'm sure you know, the reporter Goto and the other one. You know what? Look at this. Again, when I start to record, people start to clean up around me. What is that? What is that? Every time I start to record, like there's a big park around here. People can clean up anywhere, or they have any place in which they can choose to clean up, but they always start to come around me right away. Like this guy here just walked into the park, and the first place he went to was the bench right next to me. And again, someone right now is coming right next to me to start picking up stuff next to me in the park. There's stuff all around the park. There's cigarette butts everywhere here, so why choose next to me? Do they want to be on video? If they want to be on video, it's okay, but just tell me, I'll put you on video. I'll give you a shout out. If you have a YouTube channel, maybe one of you guys here have a YouTube channel. You walk up next to me and you want to have your YouTube channel shouted out. That's cool. Do it. But don't just kind of stalk in the background, kind of lurk in the background. If people want to make a funny face in the background, that's hilarious. I like when people do that, but just lurking is it's a little bit creepy, man. A little bit creepy. You're spooking me out a little bit. Anyway, sorry. Recently, Kenji Goto was killed, and so was, I forget the other guy's name, but I remember well, I shouldn't say his. He wanted to be identified as a woman. He was transgender. Haruna, that's right. She wanted to be known as Haruna. Even though everyone says two men were killed, he actually, in a kind of a sad case for him, because he was obviously going through a lot of suffering, a lot of mental anguish. And I'm not saying people who are transgender are going through that. I mean, I'm sure some are, with gender identity crisis and stuff like that. But this guy, I'm saying like other things outside of that had happened in his life. Like both his mom and his dad had died. His company had gone bankrupt. His second company had gone bankrupt. And then he decided he wanted to become like a soldier of fortune and went to Syria. So he had kind of a mixed up life. I'm not adding in the transgender stuff to that being, some sort of mental anguish. But he was going through a lot of stuff, and he ended up there too. It was kind of his own choice, though. I'm not really sure why he decided to go there and try to become a soldier of fortune. I don't think that would work out too well for anyone, especially even if you hadn't been in the military and had no, if you had been in the military and had military training, I think you still would be going in over your head as a one-man army. It's not like the movies, you know what I mean? You don't just go in there and guns ablaze. And this guy hadn't even been in the military or anything, had no military training, had no gun training. Like, I don't know what he thought was going to happen, and he just went in there to like be a hero. Whereas Kenji, his was a different situation. He was going in there to really try and help a lot of kids. He really had a lot of compassion for how bad the living situation were for some kids out there, and he really shone a light on their plight. And so, I mean, it's sad to see any human killed unjustly, or justly for that matter. I'm not for the death penalty, but even more so in their situation, right? Really an unfair situation. And that Jordanian pilot too. I think people aren't giving him enough news. They're too focused on these two Japanese guys. I mean, his life is just as important. I don't know why we're making that such a smaller part of the news. That poor man was burned alive. That has to be far worse than, I don't know, would they get shot in the head or their head cut off? I don't know. Head cut off or burned to death? Which would be more painful? I think, God, that's hard, because I've heard from getting your head cut off, you know, you start to, you feel it only so long, and then obviously you start to cut the nerves even where you're feeling pain to the brain. But at the same time, I've heard with burning that you usually pass out from pain or pass out from smoke inhalation before you actually die from burning to death. I don't know. I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to. Why think about such a torturous situation when you don't have to go through it? There's really no point. So, really a sad situation. So now there's a big story in the news. What I'm leading up to here is there's a big story in the news that another reporter just tried to go to Syria, and when the Japanese government found out, they're like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Like, no, stop. Like, let's wait till things calm down, then you can go and do a story in Syria. And we don't want any more people captured. We don't want this situation. And most people, sorry, I'm gonna readjust the camera there. Most people are spouting off like, oh, well, you're taking away his First Amendment right for free speech, or, and other people, some people made a very good point, and this was in kind of like in the comments and stuff. They said, well, you know, like, dumb people all around the world put themselves in stupid situations with travel all the time. For example, not too long ago, there was a guy, he went to some, like, I think it was Bolivia in South America. And I don't know if you know what Bolivia is like. I had an uncle who actually did missionary work out there, and it's not a great area. It's pretty rough. And a Japanese couple went there, and the man got into a fight with a taxi driver out there, and the taxi driver killed his wife and threw him out of the car. And it's just like, why did you put yourself in that situation to begin with? Like, did you read anything about Bolivia before you went out there? Like, did you study the country? Did you learn how safe it was or anything? I mean, that's like, if I went to the Congo and started screaming at people, like, I would end up dead. I know that. I understand that. If I went to North Korea and I told everyone about how awesome I wanted to talk about America was, I would end up either in a gulag or dead. I understand that, like, because I've done, like, the smallest amount of research on the country. I mean, come on. Common sense here, people. So some people are saying, well, look, you know, people put themselves in stupid situations. The government stepping in to stop them from doing that is, you know, taking away their freedom. But really, I mean, isn't that kind of the function of a government? If you're going to have a government, isn't it to protect the people even from themselves? I mean, that's why we have things like Baker Act in America. That's meant to protect people trying to commit suicide from committing suicide or hurting themselves. Is that kind of the same situation? I mean, let's be honest, if that guy did end up in Syria, he has a pretty good chance of putting himself in a very dangerous situation. I don't know. That's a really gray area, because I agree. I want to see the media have every right to publish as many stories as they want about, you know, anything that's free speech, covering anything, but is it worth letting them put themselves in a dangerous situation? Not just a dangerous situation, but a situation that could put Japan in the news again as not paying to bring a hostage home. I think that also would look really bad for them. You know, life and money aside, no government wants to be put in that situation, and if they see that happening, I mean, can you really blame them for wanting to get out of that situation? I'm not a big fan of the Japanese government. I'm not a big fan of the diet or the ancient politicians that make all the bills for the elderly. But in this situation, I kind of am seeing what the government's saying here. So, just my thoughts on that. See, this is the way I wanted to ramble. Now I feel good. Like, all I wrote down was news in Japan. Government takes away reporter's visa to Syria. And I got off on a ramble that I wanted to do, so I'm feeling more structured this time. It's feeling much better. I hope you're enjoying it, too. I wish I could turn this into a podcast, too, because I don't want everybody to be forced to watch a video on the go. Obviously, this in audio is just as easy to listen to, but I don't really know anything about podcasting. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I don't know anything about it, but I'd like to do that because I think this would make this more accessible, because you can just download it and go, or you can listen to it on Stitcher. See, I know all the programs and stuff. Like, I know I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I don't know how to make one myself. Okay, and the other thing I read about in the Japanese news was monster neighbors, how monster neighbors are becoming a problem. Neighbors in Japan used to be very cordial to one another, and now there tends to be selfishness and outbreaks of fights. And this is for multiple reasons. This old lady's like lost in the park, and her daughter just found her. She's like, "Okasan, you fine? You okay?" Okay, they found each other. I was gonna help out if they couldn't find each other. Um, so monster neighbors. I'm pretty lucky in my situation. I don't have any monster neighbors. I don't have any neighbors that really cause me a lot of grief. For the most part, my neighbors are pretty quiet. Once in a while, they get into a big yelling match with their kid who's like 6 or 7 years old. I guess sometimes he does some really bad stuff. And when he does really bad stuff, the mom kicks him out into the hallway. So um, I think she's a pretty calm woman otherwise. Like I think she's like pretty low key. Like I've seen the way he acts, and sometimes the kid acts pretty bad, and she's just like, all right, you know, and deals with it. But I think there's a few times where that kid really pushes their limits, and they kick him out in the hallway. And they're like one time in the middle of the night when they were sleeping, it was pretty late. It was like 11 or 12, and he tried to escape. He tried to like climb out a window or something. I don't know what he was thinking. Like, you know, this is like a 8 or 9 year old kid. And so the dad kicked him out in the hallway. He's like, "Fine, you want to escape? Go escape. Go, leave. Get out of here, you idiot." And oh, I think a Google car just drove by. Whoa, look at this car back here. I'm getting distracted. This is my ADD kicking in. Can you see that car back there? Wait, can you? I can't see it now. Google car. It's got like a million cameras on it, and it's got a dish on the top. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a 6th camera at the top that's like really high up. Whoa, cool. Oh, that was my ADD kicking in there. I'm like a squirrel. Like a goddamn squirrel. Nuts, nuts! Okay. So, where was I? Yeah, so like, the kid tried to escape one night, and the dad kicked him out in the hallway. He's like, "Fine, you want to escape? Go escape. Enjoy it." And like, closed the door. And of course, the kid kicked and screamed and was upset and angry and like, "Let me back in, I'm sorry." And, you know, it was only like 5 or 10 minutes they let him back in. But, you know, they're teaching him a lesson, you know. Don't try to suddenly escape in the middle of the night. You'll end up like locked out and in the cold. So what the hell are you doing? Some people might say that that's too harsh a parenting, but I think that teaches the kid a goddamn good lesson. But these stories in this area about monster neighbors, a lot was about smoking, I noticed, and I can 100% agree. Smoking in Japan is goddamn nuisance. For example, just to give you one reference to it, at my own apartment, the foyer, or the entrance, or whatever you want to call it, of our entire complex, it's open air. Like, it just got open air windows and everything. And they have a place to put out your cigarettes there. So that means every person who's going to take the elevator right below my apartment who smokes is smoking until they get into the elevator. And this is indoors, it's pretty much indoors. I mean, it's open windows and stuff, but it's like an indoor place. And so anytime someone doing that, if I'm like out on my balcony or I have my windows open, right away, of course, I smell tons of tobacco just pouring into my apartment. It's a pain in the ass. They could just as easily take that ashtray and put it on the outside of the entrance, like as in the doorway to the entrance of the apartment complex. And I don't know why they do that. They're ruining the inside of the place. You know, they're gonna have to replace everything in there pretty quickly when it all turns yellow again. So it's so stupid. Smoking in Japan is a problem. You're not supposed to walk and smoke. That is the law, but nobody in Osaka obeys it. Tokyo people do, for the most part, I've heard. Osaka does not. So you'll just be walking along and suddenly your trip will get really stinky and you'll look ahead and somebody's just trailing a big ass cigarette right in your mouth. Lovely. I hate that shit, man. I really don't like, you know, anybody's allowed to smoke. I don't care if you want to smoke. Smoking's your right, whatever. You want to kill yourself, do it. But don't kill me with you. You know what I mean? Don't poison me with you. Whenever I catch somebody smoking, just like Give Me a Break Man does, if I catch them smoking in a no smoking area, for example, next to my kindergarten where I work, where there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 6. There's 6 no smoking signs. 6 no smoking signs. And still, Ochan comes out there and smokes. If you're wondering, can you hear some music in the background? If you're wondering what that is, it's the oil company. The oil company comes around and gives people oil. That's what they do. They play that little song, I don't know why. So anyway, that was the news for that. Moving on from there, let's see. Alright, moving on from there. Sorry, I had to reset up my camera a little bit here, so probably got a break in the video right there. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. No worries. Monster Neighbors, finished that. I think we're done with that. I think I blabbed enough. Back to ISIS again, because now we're going into international news. Anonymous takes down a lot of ISIS stuff. So Anonymous went around the internet recently and took down tons of different websites, Twitter, all different types of account like that, videos and stuff, recruiting videos, recruiting accounts for ISIS. You know, Anonymous is kind of like this weird force that does its own thing. It goes back and forth on like what people think about them. I feel like in the news, the coverage of them is really this gray area of going back and forth. They kind of remind me of characters in Game of Thrones, where like they're not super good and they're not super bad. Like they're just kind of like, when they feel they're justified in a certain situation, they do what they think they have to do. And I think that's all I'm going to comment on, because I don't want my channel attacked by Anonymous. Anonymous, if you're watching, I think you're awesome. Please don't take down my channel. I think what you did with ISIS is definitely awesome. Taking down a bunch of ISIS stuff is fucking cool. Screw ISIS. Anybody who does anything to take down that organization, and no, I don't associate them with Muslims. I don't think they're any sort of Muslim or anything like that. I don't judge Muslims by idiots like ISIS. Like I've always said in the past, I'm for any creed, code, or religion that doesn't impede upon my own rights. And being a Muslim does not actually, a real Muslim does not do stuff like ISIS. Next up, ooh, I like this topic, Brian Williams from NBC News. Choppergate. I like any of these gates. Everyone always is like, oh, I always gotta call everything gate. I liked Gamergate. And I'm not saying I'm for or against Gamergate, please, I'm not taking a side. I'm just saying I like to read about these issues in current news. Oh my god, please don't put me on a side of that. I just like to watch them objectively, not subjectively. I don't take a side, please, please, please. Choppergate. If you don't know about what Choppergate was about, Brian Williams, who is a broadcaster on NBC News, I'm sure if you looked him up right now and you're from America, you'd be like, oh yeah, this guy, I've seen his face a million times, said that when he was in Iraq, he was on a military chopper that got fired at, like, you know, like took gunfire, and he was all like, oh my god, I'm in this chopper taking gunfire, like out of, what was that Ben Stiller movie, Tropic Thunder? Like, I suppose the situation he imagined, because it is imagined, it didn't actually happen. Apparently, he was in a helicopter that was an hour behind another helicopter that got shot at, and according to him, he just mixed up the stories. He's like, well, I thought I was in the helicopter that got shot at, you know? So stupid. It'd be like, you know, not to take lightly of 9/11, but if you were on a plane that took off an hour before some of the planes that crashed in 9/11, would you lie about your story? Would you be like, oh man, I was in the plane that crashed into the Twin Towers. Oh wait, that was an hour before? You know, I got this stuff mixed up, whatever. And there was a horrible meme. It was hilarious, horrible and hilarious at the same time, perhaps in poor taste, but it had a picture of Brian Williams, and it said, I had to write this one down because it was so funny, it said, when ISIS beheaded me, I couldn't eat for a week. Oh, Brian Williams, what are you thinking, man? So now, apparently, he's gonna go ahead and take a sabbatical. He's like, man, I really need a vacation. This is perfect time. So, you know, peace out. You know, try to forget this while I'm gone, and maybe I'll get hired back or get hired by another news company that doesn't care how much I lie. You know, here's the thing. Just being on YouTube, I mean, you're gonna get called out when people see bullshit in your story. I mean, people try to call us out all the time. So I've had people try to tell me, like, you don't live in Japan, that's not Japan. So like already, like, things that are really obvious in my video that I'm obviously not lying about, people try to call me out on. I have people try to call me out all the time, and you know, I had one guy who was like, you don't know shit about Shintoism, and because I had made a video about religion in Japan, and I was like, well, you know, I'm not an expert. I never said I was an expert on Shintoism in the video, but if you want to make your own videos about Shintoism, please go ahead. And of course, no response from that guy. But I know every time I make one of these videos, I very much so have the chance to be called out. So how much can I exaggerate? I'm sure I do exaggerate at some points. just to add a little more action to the story. Like, for example, there's a really old one I've got on here called, what was it called? Mightier Than the Sword, and it's this manga that I made about a night I met up with people who were Yakuza, and it was two separate nights. And the first night I met them, and then they invited me out again a second night. But instead of making this long drawn out story of how I met them again a second time, I put both stories together and just said, I met them, and then that night they invited me out. So I did change that story. I exaggerated in the fact of how quickly they asked me to go hang out, just to cut down on the amount I had to draw, honestly. But right away, someone could have called me out there if they had known what I had done. If they'd been like, well, wait, Scott, that wasn't until like a week later that they finally asked you to go hang out at a bar. That's very easy for them to do, and I'm just YouTube. If you are on national TV, your chance of getting called out is so much greater, so why would you bullshit about something so big? Veterans, of course, called them out right away, where they were like, look, dude, I know which helicopter you're talking about, like, that's bullshit, that one wasn't fired on, I was on the helicopter that got fired at, like, why would you even say that you faced those sort of odds of surviving, like, and said that you take the same kind of chances I take as a soldier? Of course they were offended. Those guys are risking their lives every day. Whether you are for or against the war, you have to admit that soldiers are risking their life every day, and to put yourself in the same place as them and say, oh, you know, I take on all the same stuff as those soldiers in that chopper and it was so scary and I almost died, and come on, man, why would you even take your chances on that? I don't know. I mean, wasn't it also Hillary Clinton who said that when she was exiting an airplane one time they were taking sniper fire or something, and that was total bullshit too? I guess everybody forgot about that, but what the fuck, man? Like, saying that you took gunfire and stuff. I always feel like if you're gonna tell a story where like you're getting shot at, you better not be exaggerating, because people are really gonna look into that. They're gonna be like, oh, really? You were shot at a bunch while you were doing something in another country? Oh, really? Okay, let me go check that out. Because, I mean, like, you know, you're talking about you risked your life to do something. Oh, well, whatever. You know, is it really my place to judge those on TV? I don't know. Choppergate. So at first when I read Choppergate, I was like, oh, I hope this is about like him on a motorcycle or something, but I was thoroughly disappointed. I thought it was going to be like West Coast Choppers or something. It was like, he was seen, I imagined this story where Brian Williams was like in all leather and like had like cut off leather gloves and was on a chopper, a West Coast chopper, and they're like, you can't be a conservative news person anymore because we saw you on a West Coast chopper. That's what I'd hoped Choppergate was about. See where my imagination goes right away? Like, really fantastical stories. Okay, so now I want to jump into, I got movies written next and video games, because those are two more things that I felt I didn't get to cover enough. So I'm going to talk about movies I want to see and movies I watched in 2014 that disappointed me or surprised me. So first of all, one that surprised me that I really liked in 2014 was a horror movie. Most of the stuff I'm going to talk about is going to be horror movies, sorry. Was Possession of Michael King. I do not like possession or exorcism movies for the most part. For the most part, I find them kind of boring. They're kind of like, okay, this person's acting too crazy. Oh, here comes the oil truck again. You're probably going to hear them over my video. It's okay. You know what it is now. It doesn't matter. Oh, they turn off the volume when they go through the neighborhood. Interesting. Anyway, they made this movie, Possession of Michael King, and it was a great possession movie. It wasn't really an exorcism movie because he doesn't actually get exorcised. I guess, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Possession of Michael King, kind of skip past where I'm talking about this because I'm going to kind of spoil it a little bit. Possession of Michael King is exactly what it sounds like. The guy, well, I guess it's not exactly what it sounds like. He's married to a wife, has a kid, very happy family. Wife dies tragically, and she was very, I don't think they state what religion she was, but she was very religious while she was alive. She believed in a god, and I think she believed in a devil. So some sort of Christian branch. That being said, after she died, Michael King, her now widowed husband, decides, I'm going to prove to myself that there is nothing on the other side of life, that there's no great beyond, that death is final, and that there is no hope for my wife. Why he wants to prove this, they don't make entirely clear, but I think my own personal belief, the message that I kind of got, is that he wanted to prove to himself that life is utterly hopeless and futile, because that's how he was feeling. which I can kind of understand. I think when I finally reached the point of becoming an atheist, I had that feeling for a little bit, but you start to quickly realize there's so many things that you can replace God with, that you don't need to be hopeless. Like the fact that you can find a meaning in life by realizing or creating your own meaning to life is a purpose right there. You need to create your own. You don't need to rely on an invisible sky daddy to make one for you. No offense to any Christians out there. If God is your inspiration for living, so be it. And nothing against that. And he goes through all these rituals like necromancy, possession by the dead, and whoever did this movie really did the research on like how some of these rituals go down. Like, I mean, it is crazy shit they show, like sewing in the teeth of dead people to his skin, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. They cover black magic possession, and man, that part is freaky. The possession they do of that part is just, it's amazing. It's really good. Like, they've got these creepy masks they use for the ritual and everything. It's amazing. And then on top of it, his possession becomes this very unique experience of like, usually you have like, people gibbering in voices and stuff flying around the room, but for him it's like he records himself the whole time. He locks himself into his own house. He becomes like a hermit, like a shut-in. And as he's recording it, things are becoming worse and worse. He's losing his feeling for pain. He suddenly has like rises in volume in his voice. Like as he's talking, he won't talk in another voice, but his voice will suddenly get louder as if someone else is talking through him. And then they can't explain it even through measuring it digitally and stuff like that. So it starts to even reach from like possession into science and stuff like that, which makes it a little more interesting, not just kind of this, well, I guess it's everything mystical and spiritual happening. So very, very interesting movie. If you're not a big fan of possession movies, you might like it. If you are a big fan of possession movies, you'll really like that one. A movie I was disappointed by, a horror movie that disappointed me, I really got excited to see, but was sorely disappointed, was As Above, So Below, a French horror movie about the French catacombs. If you don't know about that, there's a huge amount of catacombs below France that are actually, I think they're locked out to the public. The public actually can't access them, and I don't advise doing so if you ever go there. I've heard it's very easy to get lost underneath, but this crew does that, of course. It's a found footage film, found footage horror film, in which they crawl around there because from what I could make out, and it was a little bit confusing, maybe it's just me, I don't follow movies so well sometimes, they were looking for some sort of holy object. The main character in the movie, the main woman who's directing the whole journey underneath there, is looking for some sort of holy relic, and they start to find out that the catacombs are an entrance to hell. Like, they go deeper and deeper to the center of the earth, and I guess it's almost like Gehenna, where Gehenna is the old Jewish style hell, in which hell literally was below the surface of earth. And they go down through these layers, and stuff starts to happen to them. Like, they see stuff that haunted them from their past. Like, one guy was I guess he was in a car crash and everyone died except him, so he sees that car crash again and he's sucked into that and killed. And demons just randomly show up and kill people for no reason at some points. It was muddy footage. You can't really see what's going on. You can't really tell. And then even at the end, they all survive, which is kind of stupid. Like, they climb out the other side of the world, but are still in France, which really makes no sense at all. And I guess they're just going to add it up to, well, when you go through hell, nothing makes sense. You're going through wormholes and portals, and time shifts, and this space-time continuum is ripped, whatever. It was bad. Like, it's just one of those movies where they're like, we're not going to explain it because artsy. Not so impressed by that kind of stuff anymore. A horror movie I want to see in 2015, which it could suck, but it could be good, is Unfriended. If you don't know about this movie, it's a horror movie that revolves around Skype and Facebook, in which a girl is cyberbullied to the point of committing suicide. And then the kids who cyberbullied her are killed off online while chatting on Skype. And I just thought that's a pretty unique idea. I want to see that just because it's a unique idea, and maybe it could teach me something about making a horror film, because those are all things I have access to. It may suck though. It has a good chance of sucking. So I don't want to put too much hope into that. I hope I'm wrong about it sucking. Oh man, that music is killing me, man. Make it very hard to record while you hear that playing in your head. Okay. Games. I'm on to my final part here, games. So I'm going to start to wrap it up with games. But I'm going to go through quite a few games. You're going to be surprised. So games I have been playing recently that I'm happy with and not so happy with. I'll tell you which ones I like so far and which ones were kind of a letdown. Let's start out with a letdown. Let's start with the bad news first. Evil Within, or as it's called in Japan, Psycho Break. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like there's scary points of it, but the story isn't making any sense to me, and maybe that's just because I'm an idiot. I don't know. Maybe because I have problems following stories sometimes. I don't know. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Evil Within. It hasn't captured me. I started to play. I got probably like 20-30 minutes in, and I couldn't keep playing. But I want to say one other game that I just recently finished the director's cut of was Deadly Premonition. And that was a game where the first time I played it, I didn't like it. Because you start out shooting zombies. And shooting zombies is okay, but it's been done many, many times before, let's be honest. And if you don't get past that part, then you don't find out how good the game is. And Deadly Premonition has an incredibly good story. If you like Twin Peaks, you'll love Deadly Premonition. It's a pretty old game now. I think it came out for PS3, but it looked like a PS2 game when it came out. It still looks like a PS2 game. Looks like crap, honestly. It's got a ton of glitches, ton of bugs. You can get it for Steam, but it is buggy as hell. You're gonna have to download a patch that doesn't even come with the game. You have to go to a different website to get it. But the story is amazing. Penumbra. For those of you who are Amnesia fan, The Dark Descent. If you hated A Machine for Pigs, which totally sucked, go back and play Penumbra, which is, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, the game made before. Jesus, that music just got loud. God, they need to play it that loud? I mean, I know they gotta let people know to come fill up their gas, but come on, man. Penumbra, a very icy game. It gives you this very isolated, icy feeling. You're in the middle of Antarctica, if I'm correct. Might be Alaska, and I think Antarctica, one or the other. Here we go with people want to get around me while I film. I don't know why. There's other ways to exit this park. I mean, it's okay. Whatever, you know. Everyone has freedom to walk where they want to. Another game I played was Realm of the Haunting, a very, very old game. A not very well-known survival horror game. A mix between like a Doom shooter FPS and what would you call? Oh, look. Here we go. A guy smoking in the park. There's a guy smoking in the park. And look, right here. Right here, you can see. There we go. No smoking. Oh, surprise! Somebody smoking in the park with no smoking. Yeah, this is Japan. So there's evidence right there. No, kinenbasho, but here I am smoking. What a fuckhead. And this is like a little kid's park too. There's like little kids playing here. Come on, man. If you want to poison yourself, you're old, you're about to die, you want to keep poisoning yourself, fucking cool, but like, don't do it to little kids, man. Come on. Fucking shitty. Anyway, sorry, that kind of thing just pisses me off. I really don't like to see people smoke around little kids in a little kid's park of all areas. I mean, come on. Oh, you're not doing it inside your house because it ruins your house? Well, guess what? It ruins little kids' lungs. Darkest Dungeons, another one I'm playing recently. Darkest Dungeons, I'm really liking this one. It's like Call of Cthulhu meets RPGs, a really dark RPG. And you have this element of stress break where your character will break under the stress of going through the dungeon, and it makes it harder and harder to fight with them. I really like this element because then you've got to try and keep their stress elements low, stop them from going insane from the chthonic monsters and stuff like that. I guess if you're a big H.P. Lovecraft fan and you're a big dungeon crawler fan, you're going to love that game. Planet Explorers, a game I wouldn't normally play because it's not anything to do with horror. It's a building game in which you go around the planet building stuff. It's pretty fun. It's a very open game, allowing you to do quite a bit, and I feel like it gives me a lot of freedom. I've played some, open world building survival type games before, like The Forest. I've got that one. I don't like that one too much. I feel like the creatures are too hard in that. Maybe I just suck at gaming too, that's possible, but I get killed in that game so fast I can't build anything. It's such a pain. Anyway, that's it for games. I think I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. That was good. I liked this rambling video. Um, the first one I didn't like so much. I was kind of not so happy with it. I'm sorry about all the camera moving around. I'm trying to fix that with this one. Although I am holding it on a selfie rod over here, so it might still move around quite a bit. Anyway, guys, that's another rambling vid. I don't know if you have tomorrow off, but I do here in Japan, and if you do too, well, enjoy it. I hope you have a good time. Until next time, I'm Unrested. If you like what you saw here today, please like, comment, and subscribe.